the more you begin to see we've been lied to. We've been lied to by every institution. What makes you think for 1 minute that the religious institution is the only one that's never been touched? You can bet your bottom dollar that the religious institutions of this world are at the bottom of the dirt.
Truth versus Authority. I'm Roderick Martin, aka the Symbolizer, TV personality, UFO investigator, award-winning podcast host, backed by Truth Seeker, streaming right here on YouTube and reaching thousands of podcast listeners across 126 countries worldwide. Thank you for all the love and support. I'll keep bringing the truth. Get ready, because what you're about to hear, you may not believe it. Truth Seekers! What's going on? It is Wednesday. Some people call it hump day, but if you're working like I do on a 7-day clock, 24/7, 12, 365 plus OT, then it's not a hump day. It's just another day. But it's a great day because I have my buddy here to my right or to the left. It depends on which way you're looking at me. And it is Reverend Michael Carter. Now, we're going to get into some conversations tonight. We're going to talk about not only him, the clergy that comes to this reptilian theory and conversation. We're also going to go into some emotional things about when you have a contact such as his, and then we'll get into his reptilian contact, not one, but two. And I think that goes for an interesting show tonight. And then, as always, we as an audience will support his work. There is a link in the description of the books he's written. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show, and we will show our gratitude and by supporting those links to do that. In the meantime, you could have been any other place tonight, but I want to thank you for being right here, right now. With that being said, we're going to serve you. But first of all, I bid you good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the 24 time zones that this show airs. So let me get right into our show. Michael, welcome, my friend, my brother. And hey, you know what? I call him too when I have some religious conversations, y'all. But anyway, welcome, my brother.
Hey, brother. It's good to see you. It's been a minute. And this is going to be a powerful conversation.
Yes, it's going to be very powerful.
Be powerful.
And let me set the tone, because oftentimes people want to know why do I have this bona fide individual in front of me? And so I'm going to read over here a little bit about you. And of course, you know, you may hear some things. You'll be like, "Hey, did I do that?" You know, and you probably just get out of here and say,
true.
"You know what? I'm all right. I'm all right." So it's nothing wrong with that. I did that the other day. I looked in the mirror after I did my walk, and I did an extended walk, and I came back here, and since there's no woman in my life or people calling me and saying, "Get on," I looked in the mirror and said, "You go, boy. You go."
There you go. You got to say that every morning. You've got to say it.
You got to love me some me, man. I got to love me some me.
There you go.
All right. So about Michael Carter, I'm going to read this so y'all know this why I'm looking over here, but originally from Baltimore, Maryland. So if you guys know where he's from, that's cool. He moved to New York in 1980, and he lived there for 25 years. That's like half of me plus 5. And working as a professional actor. Okay, he was an actor, and before moving to Asheville with his family, he's also a ordained interfaith minister, and received his BA degree in letters from the College of, is that Rochelle, New Rochelle, right?
New Rochelle, that's it.
New Rochelle, all right. And he graduated cum laude there.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so now, again, we reminded him of. Now he received his master's in divinity degree from Union Theological Seminary, right? And that's in New York City. All right, and then while serving there, he now serves you are right now at the Unitarian Universalist congregation in New York. So not New York, but it's in Maryland, right?
Yeah, in Black Mountain.
In Black Mountain,
North Carolina.
Yeah, but here's the deal. He also trained as an anti-racism trainer. Oh my goodness. And has been recognized by President Clinton for his efforts. All
Yep.
right. So
Yeah.
we have a celebrity among us.
I'm proud of that. Yeah.
Hey man, you should
Yeah.
be. You should be.
Yeah.
And then also he also was a weekly columnist in the Asheville Citizen Time, and then he served as a minister, what he's doing now. We just mentioned that in the Black Mountain, but he also written articles on UFOs, religion, such as publications in the UFO Magazine. They're not around anymore because I used to buy some of this stuff on eBay.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I used to buy that because there was one UFO magazine here in the States and there was one in Britain. There was one in Britain.
I get some of that stuff. I got a stack of them.
Yeah, I still have them.
Yeah, from eBay and stuff. So just to kind of read them. Also, Alien Encounters. He was with the MUFON UFO Journal. Also, the Contact Forum, the S.P.A.C.E newsletter, which is support program of Abductees Contact Encounters. Okay. All right, y'all, we're getting deep now. And also, he's spoken at the conferences, such as in, what is that, the second Philadelphia?
Yeah, second.
And that's a Need to Know conference, right?
Yes. That's where that was like one of my first conferences. I went there and I was so nervous, but I got through it. But that was like back in the day. But yeah.
Well, we're gonna make it look like it was yesterday because you're not.
That's why I shaved my beard off like that.
Hey man, back in the day is an old song there. But all right, listen, y'all, and now this is the good part here that I like, and though all of it is good, but this is what I think you are gonna find fascinating. He's also was in that annual Long Island UFO conference with Budd Hopkins, right?
Yeah.
And also appearing on radio and TV appearances across the nation. He's appeared in the Japanese television discussing the Bibles and UFOs. Now, were you speaking like any Japanese something or what?
No, what had happened was a Japanese TV. When I moved to Brooklyn, I lived in Brooklyn 2 years after I lived in Manhattan.
Right.
And they heard about me and they came to my house. I still got this, it was back in the day. This is a VHS, and they came to my apartment in Brooklyn and set up their cameras and everything and started telling me, and talking to me about UFOs and the Bible and that kind of thing.
All right, we got a couple more, but as y'all know, I've been working on my Spanish. Here's just the secrets.tv y obtienes tu acceso. Ya hay un par de videos de Jordan Maxwell disponibles ahora. It's my Spanish YouTube channel is coming. What that AI is something else, brother.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I'm gonna finish this so we can get started because I don't want to leave any of it out because as a long time UFO experience, I know, but it's all right for you because you humble, but it's not all right for me out of respect.
Okay, how about that? I appreciate it.
Yeah, and so a long time UFO experiences, his lectures extensively on the topic of religion and UFOs, and he's appeared on the Sci-Fi channel Steven Spielberg production of Abduction Diaries.
Abduction Diaries.
The Real 4400, and he's also a frequent guest on History Channel's production Ancient Aliens. All right.
Well, that makes two of us.
That makes two of us. I was on Ancient Aliens as well. So we are brethrens there. As well. All right, so let's get down to religion, UFOs, and we'll get to your reptilian contact as well. But I want to shape this narrative of this conversation by you telling me, how did you get from, all right, we're talking about the Bible, we got scriptures. And all of a sudden, when was the first notion that you realized, whoa, wait a minute, there's some alien connection to this story?
Okay. After my initial contact, my first contact, December 28, 1989, with the gray people that I talked about, the trauma of that, and it was almost like I was being led. I read everything, like you, I'm a voracious reader. And when that happened to me, I read everything I could on the topic. And I found Barry Downing's, he's my friend and colleague. He's a retired Presbyterian minister. In 1968, he wrote a book called The Bible and Flying Saucers. Now, he's not an experiencer. Barry's probably in his 80s now. And it was like water to a drowning. It was like to someone in the desert, because it was another clergy person. Because I figured if these people came to me in 1989, that means they must have been here in 1989 BCE.
Before Christ.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I just, that's my mindset. This is not new. And when I read his book, it blew me out of the water. Now, our theologies are a little different, but here was a man who was thinking like me, and he paved the way, to be honest with you. And so that's when I started linking this to, at that time, it was just Christianity. But as I started researching Islam, obviously Judaism, when I started looking at, Native American and African stories, and they all tell the same story of beings coming from the sky, assisting humankind in our evolution. Some of them were hostile, and some of them were neutral, and some of them were helpful. And that's how I got on. That's how I got on this path. Just like today. And when we get to this, when we get to this, as far as our government, right now they're talking about, tech and security. But I think eventually, probably soon, they're going to have to say, well, what does this mean for our religions? Because I believe, from my research, that this is where our religions come from.
Yeah. And well, some conspiracy theorists, and then I've read it a lot too, say part, or I can't say all of religion, but religion is used to block the truth of extraterrestrial being. What do you say to people who ask that question?
Yeah. I agree. But I also say there's another part of the story. Obviously, the Vatican has been on the forefront of coming out. I mean, in 2009, Pope Benedict, the most conservative pope that I know of, came out and said two things: that the Yahweh is not the name of God, and that UFOs were in the Bible. He came out and said that. And then we had Monsignor Balladucci, the late exorcist, came out and said that when people come to you and tell you these stories, they're not having a breakdown, they're not psychotic, they are telling us that they are encountering a different kind of being. And Pope Francis has been open in the sense of saying that he would baptize an extraterrestrial, that these are our brothers and sisters. So the Vatican has been on the forefront of this, and I think they're going to have a hand in disclosure as well. I know people, ministers, academics, Roderick, and they know that what you and I and other people are saying is true, but they can't come out and say it because they'll lose their tenure. They'll lose their pensions. And that's how this groupthink kind of represses this. It's taboo to talk about this. I am in a very liberal denomination. Now, they don't like to hear about it, but I don't have a pope or an archbishop from a diocese saying you need to shut him down.
You shut up, yeah.
Now, my congregation knows that I talk about this. I don't talk about it in church. I don't do sermons on it, but some of them are believers in this, and so they talk to me about it. They buy my books, but I don't have a UFO church. I have a church, but more and more people are coming out saying, Reverend Carter, I have some things that I can't explain. Can you help me with this? Or can I still be a believer and still believe in UFOs? And I say, of course you can. So there's a lot of folks out there, they just can't come forth now.
Yeah, I think just to use an analogy, and maybe it could be a bad one, but it's almost like what happened here in Dallas, where they traded Luka Doncic over to the Lakers.
Yeah, I saw that.
Crazy. And now you're going to have the Lake, these Mavericks fans becoming Lakers fans because they need to get with the winning team. And where I'm going with this, it's almost like the Vatican said, "Hey, wait a minute, we might get ready to lose this power play if we don't get on the bandwagon that Jesus is over the extraterrestrials too. That we all part of this same ecosystem." What do you think about that? You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know if they're getting on the bandwagon. I think that they are leading, that they are leading the charge, because I'm Protestant, right? I was raised Baptist. I was not raised Catholic.
Okay.
And outside of Dr. Downing back in '68, you don't hear any Protestant ministers talk. You don't hear T.D. Jakes talking about this.
Yeah.
You don't hear Joel Osteen talking about this. And I'm just picking because people know who they are. This is taboo. To talk about this is anti-biblical for some people. And so the Vatican, for all of its flaws on this subject, they are the headlight instead of the tail light as far as theology goes.
So if any bishop, like Bishop Jakes, a lot of those people, they have gone back to the motherland. They have gone back to, Jerusalem, and they've seen all the ancient stuff. They've seen it. Why wouldn't, not that you're speaking for them, but what would be the main reason why they wouldn't come back with the truth that they know that they done discovered, but yet they're just going to do it differently? You know what I'm saying?
Well, they're making a lot of money. Why rock the boat? That's number one, I believe. I mean, it's got to be in the mix. And I think once you come out and say, we live in a populated universe, that we're not alone, the next logical question is, who or what is God? And nobody's ready to tackle that question right now. It's very nuanced. I mean, I have to remind people, I personally believe in a God. I may use other names for it, but I don't believe it's a person up in the sky, throwing lightning bolts at me or what have you. But there is an intelligence. I don't think it's anthropomorphic. There's an energy. There's intelligence. Even in the literature, some extraterrestrials call this, but they may call it by a different name. They don't have all the baggage that we have. But that's a conversation. And that's why people freak out. What are you saying, Reverend Carter? Are you saying there's no God? No. But I'm saying that when you go back and look at the text, when you go back and look at the narratives of Aboriginal peoples, Epic of Gilgamesh, Mesopotamian to Enuma Elish, all these narratives talk about these beings having a hand in our creation. That scares people. And so I get it. But eventually, they're going to have to deal with this. And I'll be honest with you. The Catholic Church, Hinduism, very open about this. The Catholic Church, religions that where they make room for other deities.
Right.
They'll have a better time during disclosure than the Protestants, because we don't make room for that. There's God, then Jesus, then nothing else.
Yeah.
And so, but these other religions, they have, people have other saints. They have this one is the saint of this. They have a populated kind of hierarchy, like Hinduism has. And so, because that's what we're learning when we read these texts, that there are other gods, other extraterrestrials that exist. The other thing, and then I'll shut up for your next question, but I think this is very important. nobody wants to use the word. You can call it, you know, listen, when you read the Bible and you read these other texts, we were invaded.
Yes,
We were invaded. And that's a
absolutely.
hard word. We were in, some people say, oh, well, there was an intervention. You can call it what you will,
Yeah.
but we were invaded. And I think that's one of the reasons the governments don't like to talk about it, or they talk about it now in little bite-sized chunks, because what are you going to tell your populace? We've been invaded. We've had some treaties made with some of these people.
Yeah.
No one wants. That's the big story. So the Bible is an important book in many, many ways, but it is the story of our ancestors saying this is what it was like to share this planet with the Elohim, with the Anunnaki, with
Hmm.
the Nephilim. That's why it's an important book. Other reasons
Yeah.
too, great lessons, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think people miss that point when you use that term being invaded because the story says the Anunnaki, the Nephilim, how they came down and saw the women of men
Hmm.
and said, "Okay, we're going to take them. We're going to take them."
Yes.
Yeah, and procreate and all of the people that came here. Because when you think about all of the extraterrestrial stories, most of them lead back to we created you, almost like we created you. Oh no, I created that group over there. Oh no,
Yeah.
we create, but there was some form of man here before all of them got here, and then they said, "Huh, let's do some genetic tampering here.
Yes.
Maybe we can make a few monsters. Maybe we can make a few. Oh, if we cross this, because they did everything, not just
Yes.
man projects, but man and animalistic stuff. And
Yes.
it's all there, and it's right there in plain sight. I would say once you start doing the in-depth reading, and like you said, I think people miss the point when they from all these different versions, and then the great deluge or the great
Yes.
flood is what we want to
Yes.
call it. How many times have they tried to wipe us off the planet and say, you know what, let's get rid of these ants, and
Hmm.
it's no different. And I use this as an analogy, and we'll move on into some reptilian stuff in the Bible, because that's really I want to hit. But when you start thinking about it, and I use this as an example, that was not long ago or some months ago, I was sitting on the front porch here at the command center, is what I call it. And there was a group of ants warring, because you can tell the queen, because that's how they fight, and they all. And I decided I didn't want them fighting on my porch. Or,
Right.
we can use these extraterrestrials don't like us blowing up their planet or their project Earth. And I decided to exterminate them all, both sides. I
Hmm.
went and got my raid can, and I was ruthless, and I was unmerciful, and I heard them, and one tried to get away. So I use that as an example of storytelling of all our history and how many times that something came here and decided we need to start this over, or the ant people taking us underground for protection. All of these stories which also makes that muddy blueprint theory of Lou Elizondo, when people say, "Oh, they're coming here to take care of us, or they're here to save mankind." No, mankind. There are some ruthless ones out there that do
Thank
not
you.
care about us. You get what
Thank
I'm
you.
saying?
Yeah.
And people
Yeah.
don't want to say that. I don't know why it's so hard within, and it's about humanity. They can care less. So I am game for us building things to protect us from those malevolent ones.
Hmm.
I'm not saying
Yes.
they're all bad, but there are
Yes.
some who come here and
Yeah.
yeah, you give us, and when and you're gonna explain that later, when they invade your privacy, come through your walls, take you when you don't want to be taken, probe you. Do you think they're our friends when they do that? And I'm like, why do y'all think that? I don't know why people does that.
Well, I mean, when you've heard this analogy before, when we take your pet to the vet,
Yeah.
or when you're trying to, do something that will help them, we trick them and then we put them to sleep, or what have you. I didn't used to like that analogy, but I think I don't know whether it was Whitley or it was one experiencer. Maybe may have been Betty Andreasen. I remember one of them during an encounter said, "You have no right to do this."
That was
May have
Whitley,
been-
because remember he said they
yeah, and they said,
went back there. They went back door on him and went.
but
to work.
they said we do have a right,
Yeah.
and we do have a right.
Mm.
And for me, if you had a hand in creating us, you do have that right.
I got you.
You do have that right.
Yeah, and it makes sense because that's every most of your stories, the extraterrestrial, even some demonic presence, and say, "I am your God," or "I'm the one who created you," or it's like everybody's been just tampering, and it goes back to Earth being this project planet that I used to talk about. That I was reading in one of the books where one of the aliens was talking about that these corporations and businesses of other areas, they all invest in Earth. That's why we have so many different species of things. It's like, this is the place. And when you think of that, like you said, ownership, who made who, or I own you, I can do whatever. And that takes me into what I finally started discovering, especially when I'm studying the monarch mind control programming and how some of these doctors and stuff like to use genetics when they are mind programming. Same thing with these extraterrestrials. Explain why they take this person's mother, they come back for the aunt, the kids, they keep that DNA of generation as though they created it's their testing thing, apparatus or whatever. I don't know. So
Well, we're hearing all this stuff now about a hybridization program. Not now, it's been going on. People have been talking about it. But I argue that this is not new. When you just talked about it, when you talked about, when we go back to read Enoch, or when we go back to Genesis, or what have you, these beings were upgrading us. They were genetically tampering with us anyway. So the hybridization program has been going on for several 100,000 years.
yeah.
This is what Enoch is talking about. This is what Genesis 6 is talking about, when the sons of God came down to the daughters of men and mated. And and so what's important to realize there, one of the things is this, that these beings are very different from us, but they're similar enough to us that they can mate with Earth women
and create an offspring, because a cat and a dog can't mate. But these beings can mate with us, though. Yeah.
They can mate. So I think that that's something we need to keep in mind, and that, again, I'm not saying that there is no creator. But what I am saying, that the creator that we have in mind is probably so different and so. The finite can never comprehend the infinite, at least not while we're in these bodies. So, and that's where it's difficult to talk about God, because everybody has a different definition of this God, what they look like, what they're about. And so how do you get past all that? I mean, people fight wars over this stuff. So, it's a nuanced and, very layered conversation.
Well, here's my segue. Now, this is where it gets a little different for a lot of people, but yet you had the experience. Most recently, over the months, I've been really diving really deep to become one of the outspoken people, and there's a lot that talks about the reptilian agenda. I find that when I think about the mind control stuff, the holographic reality, all of this stuff that we're dealing with, And then you hearing the stories of who may be playing that game, who may be the one behind it, and why. I started venturing more and more, not just in the reptilian theory, but the conversation, the ancient texts, the research. Now all of a sudden it's going back, and I'm reading things that, oh, maybe Adam had scaly skin, or we were shiny, or you know, it was just all of these things. Now again, we could be having this conversation and it could be like I'm just talking, but yet you don't have a reptilian experience. So we're going to use that as verification when we get to this in a moment.
Yeah.
So why is it so difficult for people to think that there's a possibility that one of those species that have been tampering with us was reptilian beings?
I think that it's difficult, and you and I talked about this the other day. When when we talk about we talk about LeBron, and then we could be talking about quantum physics.
Yeah.
I think because in the West we've been indoctrinated to think of the serpent as evil.
Yeah.
And that symbolism is just part of our DNA. Dragons and serpents, even snakes, that they are evil. And obviously we hear about this symbolism in the Bible.
Right.
And so to fathom that, you have to go through all that symbolism. You have to go through, when you hear about reptilians, you don't think about, well, you and I may, but, the symbol of the medical, what is it, the Caudecus? Okay, that's a healing symbol. And there's a serpent on there. When, in Japanese culture, they talk about the dragons in the book that we were talking about, Mankind's Reptilian Past by Flying Serpents and Dragons.
Yep.
There are people who worship and pay homage to these beings because it's a long history of these beings. Again, some of them being friendly to humankind, and some of them being they could give a flying what. But if you have that, if you've already been imprinted, that these beings, all of them are they have no good, they're up to no good, then that's that's going to color your situation. I mean, I've seen people on Facebook, I've read, reading the literature. There are some of these beings who experience saying, I haven't had a bad time. Yeah. That some of them have been helpful. When we get to my experience, it was a he, because his voice was like a man's.
Right.
It was neutral. I don't even know what he wanted from me. I didn't walk away with any profound insights or anything after those two experiences. But and that's very scary. Not what I just said, but hey, man, these beings, they're your worst nightmare because we've been told that there's nothing good to come from them. They are serpents. They are dragons. They are evil. They are the devil. And so there it is.
Yeah,
there it is.
I'm gonna play a little clip, and then I'll commentate after that. I had it in my archives here. Let me just play it.
Harmony. I think we're being set up for something very serious and very big by some very powerful secret societies that very well could have extraterrestrial or otherworld intelligence guiding it. All over the world, we have accepted the authority as truth rather than truth as the authority.
Now, reason I played that because Jordan Maxwell, and then definitely not just plug in for all of you who have access to the Truth versus Authority secret section on that Patreon, there is a few Jordan Maxwell 2 or 3 hours, 4-hour presentations. In one, I'm just to speak of what he said. He said that, kind of echoing with you or coming with you, Michael, he said that we have been so much hoodwinked to where we all seem to be, or not him, but they have us praying to the left. In other words, to God is over here, is there, the blah, 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 while all the other folks who are enlightened or illuminated ones are praying over here or worshiping over here, which when they didn't want us to know about over here, and all of them are worshiping the snake out of wisdom and knowledge and, all of this stuff, the serpent, I would say, then we need to now make everyone over here that's looking this way not to look back because it's evil, like you said. Don't look at the snake, don't look at it, don't think about the serpent or dragons, like you said. Every Chinese culture, in fact, the Chinese rank and file felt they come from dragons. They got dragon bloodline. You know what I mean? It's like
exactly.
And when you start looking at it, it's like, all right, and it's the perfect playbook, though. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? Everybody didn't know it was something behind the curtains, or it was some movie I was watching where these people was afraid to leave out this parameter because they thought it was some demon and some eating them, and they had speakers, and it was a game that the forefathers who put together that little colony made sure that they passed along this folklore that nobody until this blind girl went over the fence. So I don't remember the movie. So having said that, and when we think about it, why is this just so much hard for people to fathom that all of a sudden that there could be this, because we use this term, oh, he lied to me like a snake. It's like anything that comes out of the mouth, the snake is the most evil thing. But yet we got them all in these towers. Like you said, if you get hit in the head with a brick, anybody on here get hit in the head with a brick tomorrow, and you had enough vision left to look around, and you saw a Wendy's, you saw a McDonald's, and you saw that 2 snake medical sign, where are you going to go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're going to run right in there to those evil snakes, because what they do know is I can get healed, I can get medical treatment, it's going to save me, all of that. But it's still those 2 serpents is sitting right there in the doorway. But you run through there with the belief that there's knowledge in everything that's going to help you, which is the truth, by the way, in some cases. But yet, when we get ready to go on Sunday over here, 2 snakes can come up on it, and now everybody's like speaking in tongues against it. I don't know. Maybe I'm going a little too far, but
no, it's like I said, these are layered and nuanced conversations. A couple of things. We were told by Chaim Mashed, right, retired brigadier general for Israel. Nobody locked him up. They didn't medicate him. He came out and said that governments of the world, specifically the United States and Israel, have been in contact with non-human intelligences for over 70 plus years. He said that.
Yeah.
He said there is a base on the moon. He said there's a base on Mars. He said there is a galactic federation. He also said something very intriguing. He said that there's some extraterrestrials who don't want disclosure, but not for the reasons we think. They don't want disclosure because we don't know what space is. He didn't say we were too violent. He didn't say they said we were too violent, which we know we are, that we weren't evolved enough, but that we didn't know what space was and how it really worked. So the governments of the world know about this, and some of them are taking their leads, their orders from some of these intelligences. Wow. So I say that when people when they talk about how Congress is split with other whistleblowers and trying to get in on the game, just remember that there's people above them calling the shots as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, now that's number one. Number two, which I think will address your question or your comment, when you go back and look at the Sumerian kings list, when you go back and look at the Egyptian list of all the kings, you start to get it when they say these kings have been ruling, some of them 270,000 years, some of them so either you'll say that's a myth or ancient astronaut theory says that these are beings and they're not human, which is why they live that long. They came here. They divvied up the earth. When you read the Bible, you see, Yahweh's fighting this tribe, the Hebrews are fighting that tribe, and they're fighting. So you have these Elohim fighting with each other. And when they split up the land, which you see in Deuteronomy 32, when you get the land, you get the people on the land.
Right.
One of the reasons that Yahweh was so warlike, which he was, but when he just got the Levant, he just got that part of the Holy Land. That was no land at all, so he just got the people. So how does he get more land? You got to go into the land of Canaan. You got to fight the Hittites. You got to fight the Moabites. I'm going to get you out of Egypt. We need land, and I'm your God. Okay. Then these beings, the original ones, their offspring mated with earth women. Now you got hybrids. We call them hybrids today.
Right.
You got the Nephilim. You got the book of Enoch when they talk about, and it wasn't so much that they took what they wanted, there was a cultural exchange. They taught us astrology, astronomy, and the Sumerian, they taught us how to make beer. They taught us how to make defensive and offensive weapons. They taught how to wear cosmetics. It's all of that is in the book of Enoch. So it wasn't just rape and pillage. These people settled down and married. Maybe there was a prime directive they broke. We don't know. So they back off and they have their kids. In the Greek, they call them titans. Okay, so now you got the parents have backed off. Now the kids are ruling. The kids are half human. The kids are half extraterrestrial. When they leave, they get human beings to rule. Michael, you're going to be a high priest. Roderick, you're going to be the priest. And we're leaving, but you are going to keep this game going for us. And we do. We get a little power. We get a little recognition. But how do you think we're going to rule? We're going to rule the way we saw some of them rule.
With their rules.
Right. So we got the power now. So we're not, not unless we are very evolved spiritually, we're going to treat them like the gods treated them, where you're going to worship us, where you're going to get food for us. You're going to cater to us. And that's where we learn that behavior. And then, of course, Jesus comes along thousands of years after that and says, whoa, there's another entity. There's another who he calls the Father. There's another way to look at life and to be involved. But we learned the things that we do now to each other, rulers, kings, we learn from the gods. And sometimes some of those gods weren't the best examples to follow. But that's how the priesthood got started. Yeah. That's how Yahweh started the priesthood with Moses and Aaron. And you got to wear, these are the vestments you wear. And we're thinking, oh my God, look at that. But the vestments were supposed to keep them from getting radiation poisoning. So they wore all these vestments, and they had some crystals on the breastplate, and so that may give a clue to how we started behaving the way we did. In the 6th and 7th century, when primitive Judaism was polytheistic, because there were different gods. That's why Yahweh said, no more gods. You worship me. I'm a jealous God.
Yeah. I'm
a jealous God. I don't want to see a drawing of any one of them. Okay? I don't want to hear it. And so, in the 6th and 7th century, Judaism, They started rewriting the Bible. They started rewriting scripture. They didn't rewrite it because they didn't like the grammar. They wrote it because they wanted to monotheize Judaism. What does that mean? One God,
One religion.
one high priest, yes, one temple, everything, one shekel, one currency. We get to tell you, Yahweh, I'll tell you what's fake news. I'll tell you what's right and wrong. And now you see that hierarchy. You see it today. You see it in Roman Catholicism. There's God, there's the Pope, there's the bishops, and then you go down a little further, they're the priests, and then you got the little policemen. That's the pyramid structure. But that's where where do you think we learned that from?
Yeah.
We learned it from these beings. It was just easier to rule that way.
And you know what? You said a couple of things, and I'm sure some of my illuminated truth seekers heard you, but you said it twice, and then you laid down another road. So I'm just going to recant on it. A lot of people don't realize, I don't think they heard when you said Elohims, meaning gods with an S.
Yeah,
right? Plural. It's the same thing when our God says in the Bible that there should be no other gods before me, but yet he's saying that there's a possibility you're going to worship somebody else, but yet in the church there is no other, right? But yet they tell you that it says don't, and most people then all of it, because my parents was this way. Oh no, what they're talking about, Roderick, is you don't, worship money and clothing and cars, don't make that your God. I'm like, no, that ain't what they said, Mom.
No.
And I'm like, oh, okay, I hear you, brother. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
exactly.
And it's sitting there. Then when you go back to them taking the instructions that worked, because there's not a person in here who would be under oppression, and then if that oppressor says, I'm packing up and leaving, and before you run out there and tell the people that he's gone, we free, they're going to run out and say, no, why don't we just tell him he left us in charge? So we can live like that. So we can live like this. And this is where the 13 bloodline families come from. And we're going to be discussing that in some shows, this Illuminati 13 bloodline, because they feel that this is where this, and we'll talk about that later. All right, so let's go. And then something else you pointed to, which most people don't see coming. I don't do a lot of politics here at all. But when you start hearing them talking about the new dawn and new world order, you can best believe if they can capture a new world order, there's going to be one religion after that. And it's going to be done by force.
let me say this about politics for your listeners.
Just make sure we don't say nothing that'll get a strike, though. Okay.
No, I'm not. Not at all. We are doing politics.
Absolutely.
When you start talking about government and kings, and let me put it this way.
Monarchs.
That's politics. I just told you about politics. Yahweh is a king. So this is politics. No, we're not going to say anything bad about Trump or Biden or anything like that. That has no place in what we're talking about. Yeah. But I want to be clear. What we are talking about, when Hayam Mashed comes out and says that the governments of the world, are in contact with extraterrestrials, that is politics. It's exopolitics. And exopolitics
is different from geopolitics,
right? But they interconnect. So when you're talking about UFOs and the Bible, when you're talking about disclosure, you're talking politics, guys. Gotcha. You got to get over.
Well, maybe I'll be more specific. I'm just not going to talk about a party.
No, we're not talking about parties. No. That's why I said we're not talking about whether you like the current administration or whatever. But when you're talking about geopolitics and exopolitics, they come together, and that's how our lives are ruled.
Yeah, and then based upon some religious rules. All right, let's do this now. I want to set the tone for your reptilian contact. Before we do this, Yeah, yeah, and a lot of people don't understand. A lot of stuff gets emotional. Reason. You and I are part of Project Black. I don't talk about it enough. When we did our first show, I think a guy was here, Charles, the other day, and then I have many more come. You're part of the Project Black organization and movement, the Black League of Alien Contact Knowledge. So y'all be ready. We're going to be bringing a lot of experiences up front. But here's the deal: when we talk about this reptilian beings. And people say that they really sometimes the rumor has, maybe they're afraid of us because we have more population. So if we all came together, we could. They talk about that their food is loosh. It's called loosh. The negative energy. So this is why we have so many negative energy. So being that that's the storyline, but yet you've had an encounter. Let's start with the emotional side of this before we get into what really happened. Emotionally, then and now, how has this, and now that you know more and more about reptilian, you and I have reading some of the same books and others, let's just go into the emotional part of this ordeal. Or the experience, and then we'll talk about the experiences as well. But
yeah. Well, it was. I was a wreck. I was a mess. I wasn't sleeping well. Because I had seen the Greys, and they were coming pretty regularly, twice a month, full and new moon, for about 8 months to a year.
Okay.
And I talked to you. I'm more open about it. Last year, I opened up about it. The post-traumatic stress I have. I have a hard time being alone in my house when my wife goes away. I close all the windows and close the blinds, and I know that that's not going to keep them out. But for me, psychologically, because it's just just how rapidly it can happen. I could be in my bed, and I could be looking over here, and I could turn like that, and boom, there's a being there. Now I can almost kind of sense if they're going to come, but I had none of that then. And so I couldn't talk to anybody about it. So I was living this little closeted life. It was just not really healthy until I found a support group. So I was just kind of getting used to the gray people, and they would come when the first time they came, the gray people, they came in December 28, 1989. They would come every full and new moon, but they also made it a point after the first time, they would come when they knew I was home alone. My girlfriend and first wife, she worked at night. So.
Take your time, brother. Take your time.
Yeah. So, I was having some problems, but no one knew because I went to work and I did, but
that was my question for you, because it's like we are men, and we're not supposed to have fear. We're not, and it's like, okay, yeah, baby, there's a bear outside. All right, baby, I'll be out there in a minute. But you want to come back and say, baby, I saw something last night. I can't explain. So how do you, and you were in relationships, how do you sleep as the protector? Okay. All right. We coming to that person. Yeah. So how did you adapt to being the protector, the man of the house, but yet the violation that you can't explain, the fear you can't explain to the very person that's going to look at you different? Because let me tell y'all something, in relationship part, I don't know whether it's a man or a woman, or, how you from my experience of all this, you can tell that person where the bodies are buried, where banks was being taken down, where you hid all of the combinations, but you can't tell them that experience, because it's like, I don't know. Go ahead and explain that.
No, and that was why at the top of the show, people can't come out. People, been holding on to this stuff 50, 60 years, the whistleblowers, your everyday people.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate because Sandy, that was my first wife's name, she went through the gray thing with me.
Okay.
She was in the room when they came, but they put her to sleep, I think, because she wouldn't wake up. And she's a very understanding spiritual person. We're still very close. And she just said, "I've never seen you so scared." And I have to tell you, Brother Roderick, I just, I didn't even try to be brave. When I saw those gray beings, I just pulled the covers up and pulled them up over my head and got in the fetal position, and she couldn't wake up. So I was just getting with that, and I was lying in bed, and usually when they come, the gray people would paralyze me. This person didn't. And I was lying on my side facing the wall, and I just saw, I just saw this person walk through the wall. It was a reptilian. It had to be about 7 feet tall. It was almost hitting its head on our ceiling. And, it had,
It's all right, man. It's all right. I don't think a lot of people know exactly how hard it is. We had Charles here last week. But go ahead.
it had a tail. It pardon me. It had these eyes. It was this color, and the eyes were yellow, but they went like that, like a cat eye, horizontal, vertical. He was huge, and he had a tail, and he touched me, and he said, his mouth did not move, was a deep voice, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." And they always say that. You look in the Bible, what does the angel say? Don't be, I mean, it's easy to say that. And I can have a little humor now, I assure you. I didn't then. And his mouth did not move. It was like I had speakers in my head. I just heard him. He had on like a tank top.
Trying to be as familiar as he can be,
Yeah. Like what we call him, a wife beater. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he just looked at me, and I was, I was going to have a heart attack. And he touched me with nails really long. "Don't be afraid." And we just looked at each other. And then he just did like that. And like you were stepping over something. And he just went right out through my wall. Just left. And I was already fragile. And I didn't, obviously I didn't go back to sleep. I just didn't know what to do. I told Sandy about it. I drew her a picture. But then when I went to the support group, I found a support group. And I just was around other people who had experiences. So maybe a week later, maybe less than a week, no more than a week, I'm dreaming. Sandy's out at work, and I'm dozing off. And I think it's a dream, but right now I don't believe it was a dream because a friend of mine told me that when you have a dream and everything in your house, or you're in your house. Like if I had a dream, I'm down here talking to you, and all my pictures and stuff are the same way they are in the dream, because dreams are distorted, they're
Yeah.
blurry, but he said when you have a dream and you're in your house and everything is the same way in your house, that's not a dream. And they know how to manipulate space, time, whatever. And someone was knocking at my door, and I got up out of my bed in the dream. Sofa's there like it is in real time. Refrigerator's there. Cognac is there. And I walk and I don't open my door. I look through the peephole, and it was two of them looking in the peephole and stood back. And I was like, in the dream, and then it went black, and I was in my bed. I was in my bed.
You
And
know,
those are my two reptilian experiences. I've never seen them again.
one of the things that I think that's standing out, and before I go further, let's take an opportunity. We got almost a few hundred people in here. What would you say to those people who are watching right now saying, I don't believe that? What would you say? And to the people who had an experience, who never talked about it, that it's time for them to get it out. Let's go with those two lanes.
Okay, I would say to people who don't believe, that's okay now. I know what happened, and that's okay. There's literature. I'm not the only one who tells these stories, but I no longer have the need to prove or to, I don't have the energy. I'm too old for that. For the people who do have had these experiences, I say you're not alone. If you're keeping up with the hearings, now it's a little different, but you have people coming in, whistleblowers, who have been holding these things in, breaking non-disclosure agreements. So it's a very real phenomenon. The Vatican has talked about it. So it's still taboo, but it's not as taboo. I counsel people about this all the time. So I know it's real. You can reach out to me, my email, michaeljscarter@gmail.com. Because what you need is, in order to start the healing process, is someone who's going to be non-judgmental.
Yeah.
Because you're not, so you don't be ashamed. So no one's going to say, "Oh man, that's the sickest thing I ever heard. What kind of minister are you?" or whatever it is. But because you're not going to make people believe what they don't want to believe. And that's okay. I'm almost 70 years old, 69. So I'm past that. But for those of you out there, just know that you're not alone. There are books written, there's research, there's Roderick. You have a lifeline.
Yeah. I tell people, and one person, that's all right, brother. I got you. And, I think sometimes, and I had put this out here, I said it in one of my other live streams. I said, any of you sitting out here, if you think you don't have any friends or no one to talk to, it's like only one person sent me an email. I'm going to call her this weekend. And, just because I know how important it is. I know how important it is. And when I did my speaking at the UFO conference, I came in and I gave them something that I figured out after interviewing 400 different people when I used to be on Clubhouse.
Ooh.
And how it was just so impactful. And the question is, and you used the word believe. And so I came up with this, and I was going to try to write a whole book, but I couldn't. I can only just stay with where I'm about to say. And this is to any of you, and this can work in your marriage, not just for what we're talking about in experience, but it can work with a dream. Let me use that word. Whenever you get someone that's telling you something, that experience, you can't see it, you can't fathom it. You have two choices: not to combat and say, I don't believe. Maybe your frequency is not there. Maybe you're not the intellect of seeing it. Maybe you're not blessed with that experience, if that's what it is. I mean, maybe it's not. But the point that you can do, and what I will do for Michael, if we just met, and he says, Roderick, and he told me his story, and he says, do you believe me, or whatever? All I'm going to tell him is this. I tell you what, Michael, I believe you believe that those reptilians behind that dumpster, and for that reason that I support you, let's go kick some ass. Excuse me, Robert. Excuse me, Robert. But
no, I got it. It's all good.
You get what I'm saying. You have to tell that significant other, I believe you believe that this is going to work for our family. I believe you believe, and therefore I support you. You can't see it. You don't have to see it.
Yes. Listen, you know what? Those exact words, when I came out to a minister, her name was Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
We were in Boston, and she used to drive a purple Jeep. And we were going to an anti-racism conference. And she said, I just felt I could tell her. And she said what you said. She said, now, Michael, I believe that you believe what you said is true. She said, but if you want to have a career in this denomination, you must never tell anybody that story again.
Hey, we got some borders here, baby. We got some borders here.
And I said, okay.
Well, then the reptilian tell you the same thing. It's like, hey, don't tell nobody. And I think
she said, don't tell that story again.
The other part of this is when you told the story about, the fear of seeing. I was also reading, not only in this book that you and I read, that they said that it was to a point that regardless of us being in our human forms, that the sight of these reptilian beings is so imprehensible, if I'm using the right imprehensible or whatever, it is so fearing that that is another reason why they had to form the part of don't look at them, because it was somewhere I was reading, I don't know if it was said it was Moses or something, and he was asking God, can I see you? And of course, at this point, they're talking about reptilian gods. And he said, no, if you were to see me, you're going to have to be taken out, but it's like, and I've heard that story over and over that, even we had Anthony here, a reptilian channel for the Callist race, and he talked about peeing and all these things from the seeing these reptilians, how it would just, it just took you there.
Oh, it would take you there. I mean, only because just looking at that, your mind is trying to comprehend fight or flight. How did they walk in? What? Who? They're talking. He touched me. Your mind is trying to, and you've been indoctrinated. Snakes are evil.
Yeah.
Dragons are evil. And I'm not saying that some of these beings are not up to any good. There's some who probably are, just like there are human beings that are.
Yeah, there's going to be some good ones in there,
Yeah. Or at least some that are more, they can talk, they can be in relationship. But you don't know that when you see them. And so your mind is trying to fathom the law of physics that you just saw broken. Am I crazy? I must be dreaming. When he touched me, that let me know this is real.
This is real.
I'm not going to wake up and he touched me and told me. I can feel his scaly claw hand on me now. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. So you have all of this, and your senses are overload. It's sensory overload. And so that's the fright. That's the fear. And there's nothing wrong with being that afraid. What I learned to do with all of my experiences, the positive ones, because I think most of them, including that one, you know, I I took that fear and I said, Michael, where else in your life do you let fear of the unknown, fear of what's different, hold you back? And so that's how I transmuted that fear, because I did let fear hold me back in different ways. And then after a while, I started wanting to see them more. I started missing them. I started, because my life was changing, and I had some other physiological and spiritual changes that I had. So it was a journey. It was a journey. It was like turning myself inside out.
Well,
But it
yeah.
really did affect my religious beliefs for sure.
But yet you're still there, though. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. And I think that when it comes down to this, and you and I spoke about this before, and this is just shifting a little bit, and hopefully anyone who's watching, just look at me and you know why I'm getting ready to ask this question. And I'm not talking about abduction and saying, okay, they coming to get all you healthy folks, and he's not gonna. I got too much sugar in my blood. He don't want me. That's not it. That's just the humor tonight, y'all. So y'all can laugh at that. But when I talk to people in our community all the time, just in the way that we have positioned that when we look up, the only thing up there is a mansion and someone looking down, watching us, taking notes. I have always concluded that when disclosure truly, really happens, when it comes down to a mental preparation of this, and I'm not saying this doesn't go across the board, but I'm just speaking from my community and being married and family members and everybody who looks at this as a taboo subject or lunatic type stuff, or is just too far for a reach. What happens in religion, especially because that was the whole formation of Project Black. I wanted us to start the conversation. I felt that because disclosure was coming softly, even though I know the game of that is going to never go away, that it was essential and I was starting a thing called Project STARS. STARS was an acronym for using stargazing to achieve real space conversation. And I wanted us to, I was calling all these companies and I was trying to get telescopes to bring into the community and go do stargazing, but to flip it, we're not trying to be astronauts here. I just want one of those kids to ask the question, Mom, Dad, brother, cousin, is there something else out there? And now we got it. We can start the process. So in hindsight, let me get to the point, is that I felt that there was going to be a major issue mentally for people in our community, even though Bezos talks about, industry moving to space, and you don't have to be an astronaut to go to space in the future. You're going to go there because industry is moving there. And that some of these people who watching now, and I can't say that because most of these people are truth seekers, but they have cousins, friends who have children that are age of their children, who's going to go to work for a company that's going to be going to doing space hotels, and they're going to look out that window and they're going to see something that they didn't prepare their children to see, and there's going to be a mental breakdown. What do you think about that?
I think that, very, very quickly before I answer, Credo Mutwa, the South African,
Yes.
South African chairman, he talked about reptilians and how they started civilization, and
Yes.
they're all. So your audience can. His name is Credo Mutwa.
We're actually, I already got a video
Mutwa.
planned for him.
Okay.
I have a whole video and his audio in not this week, but next Friday night. So
yeah. Well, see, I don't know. I think that they will. I think that the disclosure is speeding up for whatever reason, and I think their children will know that we're not alone. I really do believe that. I don't know. You hear these dates, 2027, what have you. But I think you and I and the audience will be alive and be able, and when this is going to happen, and you can see how things are speeding up. I don't know if they know something we don't or what have you, but this is speeding up, and I feel that today's young people, they'll already be ahead of the game. They're being prepped
Right.
like
Well,
we're being prepped.
I think it is if you account that social media is parenting them right now. Yeah, I would think that would be it, because and I was doing some numbers the other night when I was doing this Monarch programming, mind control, and I was like, how is it that these people can mind control us? And it'll tie back into what you just said. And it was like, golly, I started doing the numbers. I'm like, wait a minute. We send our kids to school, and they go to school for about 45 hours a week, or at least 45 to 60 hours a week they're in school. Then they come home to the parents, and the parents are probably spending maybe 3 hours a night, maybe, with these kids. And yet people don't realize why the schools, the system itself, has more control over our children, because they don't. And then if you're working as a parent, by the time you get home, you're not the kid. And then if it's the weekend and most people say, oh, he got all this stuff he got to do, you probably got the kids got 8 or 9 hours a week socialization with their parents.
Okay. I think I see what you're saying. You're talking about in communities of color?
Yes, that's where I was
Okay,
going.
all right,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, okay, well that's a little different story. Yeah, because the game that's being played on certain folks is you got to survive.
Yes.
And so I don't have time to be looking at the hearings. I don't have
There
the
you
time.
go. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't have the time because I'm in survival mode that I'm missing out on a lot. But I think that there are a lot of shows like yours. I'm hearing about more and more support groups for folk of color, um, who so they can come and talk about these things. I do feel that there is a danger of us being left behind.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, so I do agree with that, but I also feel, and I've talked about this, and Billy's talked about it, and you've talked about it, that we're so in the religion box, and I get it. It's gotten us through slavery. It's got us through Jim and Jane Crowism. It's got us through the Civil Rights. I get that. I really, really do. But it can also keep us in a box because we're so brainwashed that anything outside of this sphere, not only are you a demon worshiper, you're certainly not a Christian, but we have to look at your NAACP card. Are you really black? Because this stuff only happens to white people. The flip side of that, though, is this. In communities of color, I'm talking about Native folk, I'm talking about African, Latino, I'm talking about Asian brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
We are not limited to the scientific method that if I can't see, hear, taste, touch, or smell it, that it's not real. Our ancestors, Credo Mutwa, one of those folk. When we're looking at the Cherokee, we're looking at the Hopi. We're looking. They're the oral tradition. They're not limited by is this real? Is that? Not only do they say it's real, they say it's more real than the physical that we live in, and we incorporate it in our daily lives. So we don't go through all those gymnastics. Well, wait a minute, we have to do this, that, and the other. No, and it doesn't mean that it's not. But we can take that spiritually.
Yeah.
As opposed to just keeping it in the material touch, taste, see, smell realm. And that's the difference in how we look at epistemology, how we look at realities.
Yeah, I think, and for clarity, because and not if anybody out there thinking this, but if you're looking at me and you're like, Roderick, this happens to everybody, I do not think that way. That's not what I'm talking about. Because I remember I got a big backlash when I was speaking at this convention, and it was guy stood up in front of 800 people and called me out and said, why are you trying to make this a racist thing? And I said, what? I was like, dude, not even close. And I said, and then somebody else said, yeah. And I was like, okay, who else thinking like him? And it was nothing, had no way doing. All I said was, hey, listen, if we're all are truth seekers, all of us, and yet we have this big pie of truth, and it is going to be segmented between communities and all of this and experiences. And if you got this whole pie, but over here, you're missing stories and information because we're not talking. But yet we having those experiences. They're not talking. Number one is trust in who's going to think I'm crazy. What do I got to lose? How can we walk around saying we got the truth and yet we're missing a whole section of pie? And why can't we come together as a collective and understand? I'm saying there's an area, y'all, we can dig deep into, and we can collaborate more other stories because it is happening.
I agree. I agree with you. I just think that there's two different kinds of truths. There's truth with a capital T, and there's truth with a small t. And there's some truths that will be true 5,000 years from now. And some truths that that will change. Like we're just seeing the Cartesian model of what is reality change. Quantum theory is. I just know that we can still have truth, but it's not so much what truth is how you react to it. You may come and tell me, Michael, these little people were in my bedroom last night and I had this dream about them and they were telling me these things that may happen and what we need to do to help the earth and whatever. And I will say, tell me about that. What's going on? And somebody else, rather than listening to the message, they'll have to take it through all these things to just see if it's real.
Check and balance it. Did it go?
What color was it? How far were you from it? Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. And science is a religion too. And there are certain things that if science doesn't, science is the search for truth. But there's some people that, if it's going to threaten my pension, if it's going to threaten my academic career, I'm not going to let that in. There are a lot of scientists who can't get with this, what's going on, this phenomenon. So we have to be careful with that. But we're all looking for truth. It's just that we may have different ways. If you tell me that, I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to say, well, what did they say? Or how'd you feel about that? Did it ring true? I'm not going to have you to fill out these forms and is there a footprint in your bedroom or did you see? That's all we're saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think what people, I think when I talk about truth versus authority, truth is plain and simple something that happened. It did happen, right? So and not to say I had to see it or this see it, but if it happened to that person, that's their truth, and then we base that on experience. But I think that another part of this, and I have to throw this in because I want to go back. It was just one of my moments. So when I was being ridiculed that day and standing up in front of all these people, and somebody just hit me and said, wait a minute, you need to ask a question. So I said, stand up. It was 800 people. And I said, stand up if you've heard or know about a experience that has happened in an African-American community. Damn, the whole room stood up. It was a UFO conference. And I was like, oops. And then I said, oh, whoa. Put your hand down or sit back down if you're talking about Betty and Barney Hill, and it was two other ones. The whole room sat down. And I said, that's my point. You talking about 3 versus 100,000 stories.
Yeah. Well,
So it is not an equal playing field of information, people.
No, it's not. I used to want, I love John Mack, and I love James Fox, but and I know they went to Africa and talked to the kids, and I
Yeah.
love it. But you don't have to go to Africa. There are people right here in the United
They are
States of
right.
color.
They're
Right here.
Yeah.
But somehow there's a disconnect. So hopefully that will change. I know I'm doing my part to see that changes. Obviously you are doing yours.
Yeah,
And so
and it's difficult.
we can come together.
And one other part about that is, I think one of the most intriguing books of all time, and you probably remember this as an author, was Chariots of the Gods.
Of the Gods, Eric's book. Yep.
Yeah, and he talked about the chariots being the UFOs, or the chariots of the God.
Mm-hmm.
And we got probably about 10 more minutes. I'm gonna get you out of here, brother.
Okay.
All right. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Need to ask for
Yeah.
permission.
No. I was I had just gotten a text from church. These people are up late at night texting me, but I can do that about tomorrow. But I can take care of that later. I just wanted to look at it.
All right.
Make
So,
sure
but let
nobody
me know.
was dying or something.
I just want to keep my promise of time, and I just looked up and I was like, oh. But one of the greatest books out there was Chariots of the Gods. And this was before we start calling these things UFOs. And then I started looking back in history, and I was trying to go through the Indian and African-American history. And then it hit me when I was listening to a song, Swing low, sweet chariot, come and take me. I'm like, whoa. These are slaves out in the field saying, swing low, chariot, and take me home. And chariot was a term for aliens back then, because it wasn't talking about UFOs. The books called them chariots. Somebody knew. And I'm like, they were talking about UFOs. When I looked over to Jordan, what did I see? Angels coming for me. That's UFO was always seen over water. They were coming out of water. That's where they hid. And I'm like, they were singing, because who else gonna take you home, swing low and get me? You know what I'm saying? I'm out in this field. So I'm like, you know what? We need to go deeper and deeper, deeper and deeper. And that's my point. And we'll just shift it back to say this. Reptilians, these experiences, what people are dealing with is about as real as it can get, people. And more people are starting to realize that there's something else out there happening, or we're into a bigger thing, or people will say the Matrix, and I'm no longer a proponent of walking around saying, oh, this person's wake and he's woke and I'm woke. I don't really deal with that anymore, because it almost put another segment within our truth seekers community, because I know more than you know because I'm woke. No, you didn't know what he didn't know a year ago, 2 years ago. Where did that become? It's time for us to illuminate and enlighten these people, but yet when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. You can't just go spring it up on somebody. Mm-hmm. But I think I lost a dear friend. We communicated for 3 years straight, and this was the last few years. Me and him would talk about dreams, business, and he was kind of always skeptical about it. He would ask me questions about the alien stuff. Then he met this new mentor who was going to teach him how to become wealthy, and the guy started pulling him into church, and he just stopped calling me, and I knew because he was dealing with it. But he segmented our friendship based upon what I do for a living, and is the newfound beliefs of that. And I'm like, dude, in a few years, he's young, he's like 30 something. In a few years, when this stuff comes out, you're going to be calling me. Now, do I shut the door, or do I say welcome home, or whatever? But you're going to be calling me. You're going to be calling me back, and that's how sad I say when it comes to these experiences and people, and the segment between the truth that is coming, like you said, the disclosure and soft disclosure. What do you want to say and leave people with tonight? But before we do that, I want to talk about some of your work, your books, and I'm gonna put the screen up here. I want you to kind of go through each one of these. The links is in the description, people. You can find these on Amazon. I have the one on the left. That's how we met. I bought it, read it, and I was like, I got to contact him. I got to contact him.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, and so kind of go over each one of these, what they're going to find, and where should they begin if they're going to buy one of these or all of them. And let's go there. I'm going to leave the screen up while you talk.
Okay. Alien Scriptures was my master's thesis. It started out in its original form was my master's thesis, and then I've had 2 publishers since then. It's called Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials, and the Holy Bible, and in the book I go into Judeo-Christian scriptures and a little bit into the Quran, trying to unpack the places in the Bible that are letting us know that we're talking about off-world intelligences, and that they may have played a part in our religions currently. And I go into more in depth my first encounter with the Greys. The second book, which I think is a part 2 to that, is on the far right. It's called A New World If You Can Take It. My friend Whitley called it the best book ever written on the subject. He was being very gracious. I don't believe that, and I'm not trying to be self-deprecating. But it is talking about religion, specifically Catholicism, Judaism, Christianity, Unitarian Universalism, which is the denomination I belong to, and how this whole phenomenon is about more than technology and national security. It's about a change in consciousness so that human beings can become more, I won't say illumined, if you will, that we can own the powers that we have, that we can see the world the way it is and not necessarily the way we wish it could be. That's how the consciousness aspect comes in. The third book, Initiation. It's a handbook for experiencers, or if you know someone in your family or your friends, or if you suspect that you may be an experiencer. It talks about, and I go into all my experiences there, but it talks about the spiritual transformation that can happen if you allow it. My experiences have changed me on a deep spiritual level. And I think that's what all this is about. They're all on Amazon. What I want to leave you with is that there's going to be some difficult days ahead. You know, we got to, because when a new world is trying to be born, you know, a caterpillar has to become a butterfly. It doesn't mean that we won't destroy ourselves. It doesn't mean a big rock, an asteroid may come and hit us. It doesn't mean that we won't have a nuclear exchange. But what it does mean is collectively and individually, we have a choice. We are at a crossroads. Which road are we going to take? So we've got to make some good decisions.
Right.
You can make those decisions by remembering there's 2 choices: love and fear. Which one of those 2 are you going to lead your life by? You got 2 choices: love or fear. I don't know about you, but I see where fear has gotten us. So I'm going to choose love. And I would like to see which path you take as well.
I choose love, and of course we all can recognize both fear and sometimes fear wins on certain days, and then
on certain days.
Yeah, but
not every day.
Not every day, but it is a battlefront, and it is a battlefront.
You go.
Now I got one last question to ask you. I have an area that I now promote so that we can have uncensored conversations. Because I think there's needed things that we just can't say here. Like I was like, oh, let's not say this or that.
Yeah.
I want to invite you, and it's for my members, and because I like to, really for them, and just for people being here, their time, all of this. But I do think it's time to really yell the truth and where it's not censored. Can we set up a time where even just for an hour, that we can just take the rails off, whether it's some spiritual or whatever it is, and do a Q&A, because that's the system is really set up for Q&A.
Oh,
and there's not a lot of people there, and
it's
that's
okay.
cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, we just take it off the rails.
Can
we do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I'll contact you when we talk tomorrow. Just see a day we'll promote it. And I
can start giving you chapters and verses too, because I know we don't have the time, so people can look it up for themselves, not just take my word for it. Yeah. So yeah, we could do it.
All right. So all right, then I'm going to tell you it's been a plum, pleasing pleasure as well as a privilege.
Always, brother. Always. Keep doing what you're doing. This is your ministry.
Yes, I believe so.
This is your ministry.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate you, man, and we will talk, okay?
All right, brother. God bless. God bless you all.
All right. Y'all make sure y'all support his books. Make sure you get those books and things. If you found any value in the show tonight, there it is across the screen, for we can keep things coming, keep the lights on, keep stuff on. This is a community-funded show. And then also, if you have not, make sure that you do. I'm going to put this on the screen before you hop out. Yeah, here it is right. Here's the Patreon, Truth versus Authority. There's an all access pass where you would get some uploaded videos. But as you can see, let me put it back on the screen. Go there, sign up. You can talk to me. If anybody who's in there now, y'all know we're talking all throughout the day. It's a lot easier for me to answer questions and chat and all of that, because it's a little small knit community. It's right here on my phone. And so some of you have been talking to me today. We just going back and forth, and we can have a group conversation or individual, either which way. But he's number 7 that has agreed to do a uncensored talk. I got to push it. I know y'all might be like, oh, Roderick, but it is necessary, because there's things that people just can't say. We're censored. Y'all know that. We got hit before. And it can put you in that scary fear moment, because I was fearing that day, like, man, I'm starting a new show, Truth versus Authority. I'm putting a new mission together. And that's when it dawned. Now, okay, yeah, some of these people, not him, but there are some people I may offer honorariums to. You won't know it. So that support in that area allow me to go out and get some people, well-known people, to do private live streams only for us, uncensored, and and then as we're doing them, if you come 2 months later, I'm taking those and I'm placing them in there anyway, so you can come back and watch some of the old ones. That all of it is Q&A. It's Q&A. You can't beat that. And we have a Q&A system, and they just put everybody's question, not like this chat. It puts it in order, and then I just push it and put across the screen, answering this question. Everybody getting their question answered. Whoever want to ask as many, they just put it in the queue, and I just go down. Some people, and so it's really a sacred, great place, and I call it secrets, right? And that's where it is. And so those of you who've been coming in, some of you, got there today, but like I said, we can, I welcome each and every one of you. We can talk back and forth. I'll put it back on the screen. Also, Friday, I will unleash the new brand of truth. I know sometimes, a lot of you, it's hard for you to see this protection symbol. So it's just something I wear. And for those of you who've bought it, that's fine. So, the owl has always been the symbol of truth for me anyway. And it can go places, and it can see in the dark. It can see the dark places that we go. That's why I've always used it. So it's going to be simple stuff. Truth versus Authority, the simple hat, different little stuff just to kind of wear the brand. And I think it's something that you can sport. It'll be different colors. So I would unleash a few of those Friday so that you can get a few hats and stuff. And I'll put that up just for a special for Friday for some of it, and hopefully you can support it, and then send your picture to me, because we're putting up a community site, and I need you there, all of you who like I said, I know sometimes this protection symbol, people always email, oh, that's this and that's they have no clue. And what people don't realize is the power of symbolism, the power, and that's why I took the brand of Symbolizer. The power of symbolism is not about, it's attached to these people. It's the people who took the power of the symbol. And if it's a well-known organization like the German who used the SWAT sticker and just turned it, they just drew the power from it that the ancient Chinese was using. Anybody can take those symbols, the triangles, the all-seeing eye. We might be representing it with the fact that it's with the Illuminati and all. Well, they just took the power of that to symbolize seeing and third eye and all of that in the dimension of esoteric. That don't mean that we can't harness the power of truth seekers to see what they see, to be illuminated, to see the truth, and to get that information. And that's all that I've stood for and began to stand for. And it's why it all changed from By the Big Secret to High Strangeness, which is, I had to do that for the trademark. But we're now home. We're home. And like I said, hopefully that you find to support the show in many ways that we do, so that people can understand what we're doing here. Also, we're sponsored by Fresh Mouth Club. This is where you can get your nano silver toothpaste, man, and the hydrogen water bottle, all this stuff. That's the website, nanosilverhealth.com. It'll be an affiliate link at the top. You'll see that it goes to Truth versus Authority. They sponsor the show. And so, again, you can support them. They be at all the Forbidden Knowledge Awards, and y'all probably seen them at the Conscious Awards and everything else. But once again, if you enjoyed the show, I appreciate it and everything else. And thank you, Rashad, and everyone else. And that. All right. I love you. And to my haters, if you're here again watching and you hating on me, I still love you, and I can love you, but I may not want to meet you, but I can love you. To my moderators, I love you. Start watching again the comments after these videos. You still have the power to go in there, and if you check them throughout the day, you can answer some questions and you can remove some stuff. We do get some vicious people that come, and it's always weird because they hide behind this anonymity of these usernames, and they can say what they want. They know it. They can call me names, or they can say something about us, and most of the time I'm monitoring it, but we're growing, and so it's getting a little difficult. But you have the power as a moderator to moderate even after live streams. You can go in there and take care of business for now. I still need 3 more. So if you, and somebody else did email me, but y'all just don't give me enough information. And once again, I at least need to know your name. Who are you? Hey, here's my username. I'm like, you still hiding? I mean, let's be friends, right? Let me know who's with us and who's on our side. At least tell me something about you, that, you like apples or something. I don't know anything you can think of, but just don't text me a username and say, make me a mod. I can't trust that. That's not going to happen. Right. So anyway, I love y'all, and I love each and every one of you. Audio Rob is starting his show, so make sure we're going to support. Brother, when are you going to have your show? Put it in a text real quick, so I can put your YouTube channel on there. I'll put it on the screen before we go. And anyone else, if you starting your podcast or anything, reach out. We're trying to put our community of truth together in podcasts and helping people. I will be doing some training for that, some other stuff that I've learned from the different stuff, and things are growing. We're on an upswing, and there's a lot of stuff that I can teach you from there. All right. So anyway, I guess I was trying to wait and see if Rob put his podcast up, but if not, y'all, okay, he said Tuesday and Thursday. So put the name up so they'll know. So, and they can find your YouTube channel. And there we go. So it's Wide Open Podcast on YouTube. So y'all make sure I check him out. And he's on Tuesday and Thursday. So, oh yeah. Okay. So let me go back. Jen did ask the question. I need y'all help real quick. Thank you, Jenny. All right. So I'm going to do a poll that I want to name this owl. Okay. And remember, we're esoteric people. So I need a name for the owl. He's our mascot. And, and if you could give me some stuff to work with, and maybe we do some voting, throughout the week. And whoever wins, I'm gonna give you some owl gear. But I need a good name, and I don't need no, hooty hoo. We need a powerful name, esoteric name that this owl is of course, is my personal symbol of truth, but it also is for the channel and what we're doing. Yeah. So, his eyes are sun because, hey, that's where the power and energy is. And anyway, so if y'all start thinking something, we'll start writing that down and pretty much from there. So thank you, Jen. Somebody said Owlicious. Come on now. That'll be something y'all will. Hey, Roderick, what's your name? Owlicious, baby. Roderalicious. Not the owl. You know what I'm saying? We can't go Owlicious. That's too. But I get you, Clark. It's all good though. But maybe we can come up with something else. Next thing you know, somebody Clark will be talking about naming Puffy the owl. Yeah, right. Veterus. I don't even know what that means. Ramblers of the Round Table Podcast. Is that we talking about the owl though? Is that your podcast, Scott, or whatever? No, brother. Are you going to Brother Rich event? I was asked to come down. My sister Aaron Lyons is going to be there, and then Brother Joseph, and I was going to help both of them, one of them with their table, but Joseph is taking his wife, and Lyons told me to come down. I won't know until tomorrow if I'm going to come down, but right now I may not be going, but I sure hated I'm missing it. Yeah, it's going to be cool. Yeah, Vetus. Yes, that I actually have a shirt that says the Latin word Vetus something. That's being made right now with that owl. Yeah, so we're kind of doing that. Anybody else got any other questions? Then we can answer that. Let me see what I wrote. Yeah. I don't know if y'all can see it on the screen, but my guy's making. Maybe it'll focus on it. There you go. Notice Vetus. Oh man, if I can get this thing to focus on that. Oh, let me put it in front of my face. There you go. So y'all kind of see it. That's our little owl and his little thing. So anyway, name the owl Scott. I know. The shirts and everything will come out Friday. I got to load them all up. I'll be working on it the next 2 days. Raw. Okay, that's cool. Call them Raw. Yeah, so we can do that as well. All right. Okay. All right. So I'm out. I love y'all. I will talk to y'all soon. And Friday, I'll be here Friday. And if we may have 2 shows Friday because I may have a guest who was going to come tomorrow, but not. He may come Friday to do the after hours show in the other place. And then we can do our Freaky Fridays also in our private area too, because it's uncensored and won't hurt the algorithm here. Make sure y'all like and share the video and everything else. But anyway, love you all. And I will see you Friday, 8 o'clock. And we go a little longer on Fridays, just a couple of hours and so, but I'll see y'all then Friday.
Peace and harmony. I think we're being set up for something very serious and very big by some very powerful secret societies that very well could have extraterrestrial or otherworld intelligence guiding it. I am very fearful for the world we live in because we bought it hook, line, and sinker, and all over the world we have accepted the authority as truth rather than truth as the authority. It is going to require intellect, knowledge, study, and making a stand for the first time not to accept the things which your government gives you, which your religions give you, and which the authorities give you. Because as far as I'm concerned, I have a very big problem with anyone called an authority, because they're always...